Hello there, welcome to David's Math Hub. Today we'll be talking about solving one-step inequalities. I realized that this topic is taught in the middle school because there's this class called Pre-Algebra. Pre-Algebra is usually taught in the middle school. So you might do these things called one-step inequalities, one-step equations, and then when you get into Algebra 1, you'll get into the actual algebra stuff. So this is like the building blocks. So this is mainly a middle school topic in pre-algebra. So the objectives is to identify linear equations in one variable and recognize coefficients and constants in an equation. So it's pretty much similar to one-step equations, but with inequalities. Vocabulary is very similar, so we have a variable, which is a letter to represent an unknown, so like x, y, could be some sort of variable. A coefficient is the number multiplied or divided by a variable. So in other words, it's the number in front of the variable, so the number in front of x. So you can have like 3x, 5x, 1 over 5x, any number that is in front of x, or some sort of other letter. Inequalities are those symbols. You might have seen it when you were at school for math. So if you're not sure what they mean, here it is. So on the bottom right, it labels all of the signs. So greater than is the symbol that looks like a 7. Less than is a symbol that looks like the L. Greater than or equal to is a 7 with a line under it. And less than or equal to is an L symbol with a line under it. Let's do some questions related to one-step inequalities. So problem 1, you want to solve for x. So we have x plus 9 is less than 17. Your goal is to try to get this x by itself. So if you see my step 1 equations video, then you guys might know exactly what to do first. But if you guys did not see it, I'll tell you exactly what to do here. So you can see right here that we have this plus 9, right? Our goal is to try to get this plus 9 away from x, because our goal is to get this x by itself. So what you want to do is the opposite of positive 9. In other words, adding 9. What's the opposite of addition? The answer is subtraction. So you want to subtract to both sides, not just only to one side, but also the other side, so that that one side has nothing there, it's canceled out, and then you can just do that process in the other side. So when you subtract 9 with the x plus 9, the 9's cancel out. So you're left with only x. You have to do the same thing to the right side. So 17 minus 9 is 8. So x is less than 8. So that's going to be your answer. So many of you might be wondering, what does this look like? What does this mean? So a lot of teachers like to do is create a number line, define or illustrate what does it mean for x to be less than 8. So it basically means any numbers that are not more than 8, just smaller than 8. So like 7, 6, 5, 4, all those numbers that I just listed out. And you can see that arrow is pointing to the left side. So any numbers that are on the left side of 8 or smaller than 8, those are the numbers that would make this equation true, this inequality true. Like you could say 6 is less than 8, that's true. 3 is less than 8, that's true. And so on and so forth. Now you might be wondering, what does this dot that I just made, that circle that I put underneath that number? So what this dot means, or the circle, means are we including that number or not including that number? Every time you see a white dot or not shaded dot, that means we're not including the number. So usually it's for greater than or less than. Because think of it this way. Can't you have a number less than that same number? So in other words, can you see that 8 is less than 8? It wouldn't make sense because they're both the same number. So that's why you don't include that number, because that makes it false. But if it is shaded, that's a different story. That means we're including that number. You can be equal to 8, but you cannot be less than or greater than, depending on that number. So hopefully that made sense. So let's do problem number 2 together. Solve for x. So we have x minus 9 is less than or equal to 3. So what you're going to do is add 9 to both sides, because the opposite of subtraction is addition, because you have a minus 9. So you want to add 9 to both sides. So the 9's on the left side cancel out, and then you're just doing 9 plus 3. So you get x on the left side less than or equal to 12. So x is less than or equal to 12. So what does that mean in the number line? That means you can include 12 because it is shaded. Notice that I shaded in that circle. That means we're including it. And it has to be numbers less than 12. So that's what it means right there. So if you have any other questions about this, let me know in the comments. Now this is going to be a little bit different because now you will notice that there's a negative in front of that number. So we have solve for x, negative 9x is less than 72. So you might be wondering, where's that extra step coming from? I'll show it to you once we're doing the steps. So you can see that it's being multiplied, that negative 9 right there. So you want to do the opposite of multiplication, and that is division. So you want to divide negative 9 to both sides of the equation. So you divide negative 9 to that left side and the negative 9 to both sides. You're dividing the negative 9 with 72. Okay, so every time you're multiplying or dividing a negative, that sign is going to change. So you get x is greater than negative 8, because 72 divided by negative 9 is negative 8. So in the number line, you can see right there, to write x is greater than negative 8, you have an open dot because that means we're not including 8, and we're just using numbers that are bigger than 8. So like you can use positive numbers and numbers like negative 7, negative 6. Those are bigger than negative 8. So anything on the right side. So like I was saying earlier, when you divide or multiply by a negative to both sides of the equation, the sign changes. So keep that in mind. When you see that negative in front of the variable, you're going to know that the sign is going to change when you are doing the process. So keep that in mind. Okay, I want you guys to try out the following questions. So let's start with problem number 4. Give this a try. It looks challenging, but I think you guys can do it. But if you're not sure, you can pause the video, give this a try. If you're not sure, like I said before, we'll do this together. No problem. So pause the video and see what you can come up with. Okay, so what you're going to do is take the reciprocal. In other words, keep, change, flip. You might have heard of this 3-step word before. So you're going to multiply negative 3 over 2 to both sides. So how this works is you keep that fraction negative 2x over 3 the same. You're going to change the operation to multiplication, and we're going to flip those two numbers. So the 3 is going to be at the top and the 2 is going to be at the bottom. It doesn't matter if the negative is at the top or the bottom. You'll still get the same answer no matter what. So whatever you do to the one side, you do it to the other side. When you do that, you get negative 6x over negative 6 is greater than or equal to negative 24 over 2. Because like I said before, when you multiply a negative to both sides, right, including the negative is in front of the variable, it's going to change that inequality symbol. So instead of being less than or equal to, it is greater than or equal to. You can simplify this a little bit more. The reason why I show it this way is just for those who are learning how to multiply these fractions and then at the same time see how the simplifying works. So that's why I'm doing it this way, just for those who are learning how to multiply fractions. So now what we're going to do is simplify it right here. So the negative 6's cancel out to get x by itself. And then negative 24 divided by 2 is negative 12. So you get x is greater than or equal to negative 12. So what does that mean for a number line? You are including negative 12 because of that equal to sign, and you can use numbers that are more than negative 12. So anything from the right side of negative 12. So hopefully that made sense. Let's try out the next one. It's not too bad, so it should take a few seconds, hopefully. So pause the video and see what you can come up with. Okay, so there's only one step, which is to subtract 15 to both sides. When you subtract 15 to both sides, you're going to get x is less than 8. So that's going to be your answer. And then if you guys want to create your own number line, you should have the following right here. So it doesn't have to be necessarily what I just drew right here. So if you have like 9, 10, 11 on the right side in that, and then you just, as long as you have that dot on top of 8, and then it's pointing to the left side where it shows 7, 6, 5, 4, that's fine too. So it doesn't necessarily have to be what I just wrote for my number line. So keep that in mind. And that's going to be your answer of how you show it with a number line and solving for x. All right, solve this next one. And this is going to be the last question, and see what you can come up with. Pause the video to get some more time. Alright, so hopefully you came up with the following. So multiply 6 to both sides. So we have 6 over 1. That's the reciprocal of 1 over 6. So the reason why I'm showing this is just for those who are having trouble with understanding how the reciprocal works and how to multiply, from across, pretty much. So when you do that, you're going to get 6x over x is greater than or equal to 24 over 1. Notice that I did not change the sign because there's no negative in front of x. So keep that in mind. I forgot to mention that. Every time you do not see a negative in front of x, the sign stays the same. The inequality stays the same. And now after that, you simplify it. You get x is greater than or equal to 24. So that's going to be your answer. And now to put in a number line, you are including the 24. So we shade in the circle. And it could be numbers greater than 24. So 25, 26, so on and so forth. Okay, so we're going to end the lesson right here. So what did we learn? When dividing or multiplying a negative to both sides, the inequality sign changes. And how to solve one-step inequalities and using the number line to illustrate the inequality we solve for. So in other words, showing what numbers would fit when putting it inside the inequality that we just solved for. So like, for example, when you have x is less than 5, you would use numbers that are smaller than 5. So like 4 is less than 5, 3 is less than 5. So those type of ideas. So if you have any other questions about solving inequalities and how the number line works, then be sure to write it down in the comments and I'll be sure to answer it. And I hope you all have a great day. Thank you for joining the Hub, and I will see you next time. Have a good day, everyone.